Welcome back to another episode of Superb Sports Media Podcast. I am your host, HookShot Drew, and this is
Your boy T.
so we don't have Q today. He's not here today, but he'll be here for next time. So on our fourth episode today, this is a really exciting NBA playoffs. It's going to be Mavericks versus Celtics. The Mavericks polished off the Timberwolves in 5 games, and the Celtics made pretty short work of the Pacers. There were a few games in that Pacers series that were pretty close, but the Pacers, right in the fourth quarter, time ticking down, they seemed to just give away a couple of those games. Injuries are a part of it, of course. T, what did you think first and foremost of the Celtics Pacers series and how that all shook out?
It was hard to watch, man. I'm not gonna lie. The Celtics just look dominant the whole time, which they're healthy. They've been together for a while. They have the cohesiveness. They're a good team. But the Pacers just didn't look in sync, in my opinion. And then, health played a factor for them too as well. But I don't know. It just seemed like it was the Celtics. It seemed like it was their series the whole time.
Yeah, I'm going to basically steal a page from Q since he's not here. The Celtics absolutely had a cupcake walk to the finals. It's actually a little bit insane how in every series your opponents had lost a key player of some sort. But I mean, that's how the cookie crumbles. I mean, you play who's on your schedule and, it's part of the playoffs, but it's a little disappointing. The Celtics, I don't think they were battle tested as well as maybe they should have, but I mean, that's just my opinion. What do you think of the Celtics run to get here? As a Lakers fan, I'm sure that might annoy you.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. As a Lakers fan, I hate it, man. I really do. But I do think, like, in the same sense, it's kind of like divine intervention for them. Like, it might just be their time, bro, based on like all this crazy stuff happening. Like it just might be their time to get one. I'm not rooting for that. I'm not gonna lie to you, but I'm rooting for the Mavericks. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, there's no mystery about who I'm going for myself. I'm definitely going for the Mavericks. But as far as my closing thoughts on the Celtics, I think this has to be their year. Absolutely, this is their time. This is the
For sure.
easiest. This is the easiest path they've gotten to get to the finals. And after they what was it last year? No, it was 2 years ago against the Warriors, right? Where they lost, and then they got bounced out by the Heat, the 3-0, and they almost came back and beat him. And then Kyrie, the last time he was in the playoffs, second to last time he was in the playoffs, Brooklyn got them out too. So they've had some pretty disappointing finishes despite how strong this roster is, and they're gonna get KP back. So this is absolutely their time. As a Mavericks fan, I am a little worried about the Celtics, but
I
I
was
mean
gonna say that that is
yeah,
huge. Them getting Kristaps Porzingis back is huge. Like, yo,
yes.
it's gonna be a dogfight. I will say that with him coming back, now it gets really interesting.
It's a really interesting series because you got Kyrie Irving, former Celtic, you got KP, former Maverick. It didn't work out with KP being with the Mavs, and it didn't work out with Kyrie being the Celtics. They were both supposed to be that final piece for each team, and now you fast forward the clock a little bit, and here they are looking like the final piece for each of their respective teams. So I mean,
Which is
it's an
crazy.
yeah, it's interesting how that shook out, and you see them looking at each other from opposite teams. Now, obviously, we now need to talk about the Mavericks and the Timberwolves. So, going into the series, I'm going to go ahead and throw you guys under the bus because you both actually picked the Timberwolves to
I
win in
did.
7.
I
I
did.
wanting to be humble. I did say I felt the Mavericks would win in 7, but I did preface that or threw a caveat in there by saying I think if the Mavericks get rolling early, they could put it away earlier than even 7 because I believed in our big men and how they matched up with the Timberwolves. And for whatever reason, I was just pretty confident about the Mavericks going in against the Timberwolves. And boy, was I right. I mean, we're looking at a sweep alert early, but of course, the Timberwolves were able to take a game and go out in 5. But what did you think of that series? And do you think it's a disappointing season for the Timberwolves, or do you think this is something they could build on? What's your take on how that might have ended for them?
I know for as Timberwolves fans and kind of for the media and the people who like jumped on the bandwagon is kind of disappointing, but I don't think it was a disappointing season. I really think that they came through and showed their potential. Anthony Edwards is no doubt a star. Even though Rudy Gobert is not a very liked player right now, he still has showed his value as well as Carl Anthony Towns. I don't see it as a disappointing season. The sky's the limit. Carl Anthony Towns has to get in the gym and get better down low. He has to really become more of a big man. We respect his shooting ability, but he can't like rest on that. I don't know what you do with Rudy Gobert. I really don't because you can't be the 3-time defensive player of the year and then you're unplayable in the playoffs sometimes. Maybe you try to double back and develop him or maybe move him. I don't know. I'm not sure about that. We'll see what happens with that, but I don't see it as a disappointment. I think the sky's the limit for them. And I do think the Mavericks, I was surprised. I wasn't sure that PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively would all play better than their bigs. Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert, but they did. The Mavericks' big three of big men, they all came in, gave attention to detail, energy, just hustled their asses off, like no doubt. Like Karl Anthony Towns, just he didn't have it, and then Rudy Gobert was unplayable. I didn't see that. I'm not gonna lie. So kudos to the Mavericks big men. Y'all got a nice big three of like centers.
I'm gonna go a little bit different with the Rudy Gobert take. I honestly believe out of the stars that the Timberwolves had, that he actually played pretty damn well throughout the series. I mean, yes, late in the fourth quarter, he's not somebody that you can really put out there if you need to space the floor and shoot some threes or something, which they had to do in a lot of these games. But he was putting up points on the board, and he was a defensive force. To me, it was Cat and Anthony Edwards that kind of disappeared a bit, and even Mike Conley stepped up in spurts here and there. But I'm with you though that I believe that the Timberwolves can build on this. I don't think they should move Gobert, but I do think he needs to develop some kind of shot. His offensive game to me improved a bit this year. I feel like he's more of a threat near
Yeah,
the rim. He obviously has no jumper, but I mean, no one's able to really stop him either. His footwork's gotten a lot better. He's able to do some Euro steps and some spins and stuff like that. So I think the development is there for him if they give him the chance to develop his game. Because I really feel like Utah kind of shied away from that. They felt like he was too much of a detriment to the point where they didn't even. I mean, I could be completely off base here, but just based on what I was watching, it didn't look like Utah was necessarily drawing up a lot of stuff for Gobert or expecting Gobert to put up a lot of points. Whereas with the Timberwolves, you can tell it's expected of him to score, and his layup package has improved a lot. I don't think he's as bad as people believe he is as far as a scoring threat. It's just he has no jumper, so it's predictable what he's going to bring to the table. But I really like how the Timberwolves used Gobert this year. I feel like they used him very effectively. To me, this was Gobert's best season as a player in the NBA. I know people didn't feel like he deserved the Defensive Player of the Year award, which I disagree a little bit because I know how they typically give that player award out. It's usually the best defensive player on the best defensive team. If it was completely based on stats or like how well a player looked, it probably would have been Wembanyama. But I know you believe, or maybe I think it was Q that said that he believed Anthony Davis was his pick to be
Anthony
defensive player
Davis
of the
had
year.
better defensive stats than Rudy Gobert this season.
Yeah, fair enough. But to me, that's why it went into like, okay, well, Timberwolves are the best defensive team on paper. So who is their best player? Okay, it was Gobert. You know that's how they always pick it. That's kind of how they do the MVP too. So
Yeah,
usually they didn't do it this year because otherwise it would have been Jason Tatum that was MVP. But I mean, I was pretty happy with how the Mavericks executed. I gave Jason Kidd a lot of crap, especially last year when we missed the playoffs. I felt like he was slacking a bit when it came to managing the rotation. I completely backtrack that now. I don't feel that way anymore, especially in the playoffs. I don't know if it's just a game night to night basis when you're in a regular season when you're not playing the same teams left and right. But in the playoffs, in a 7 game series, Jason Kidd has managed this rotation really well. He knows when it's time to swap guys out. He knows when it's time to ride the hot hand. And he seems to just have a really good feel for who needs to be out there. And then probably a big part of that's probably being a Hall of Fame player. But I'm really happy with how the Mavs are executing. They're firing on all cylinders, and I couldn't be any more confident right now going into the Celtics series. Did you have any closing thoughts on the Mavs and the Timberwolves series, or even the matchup?
um, I just piggyback on what you said. Honestly, I really do think, like you said, I think Jason Kidd is becoming like one of the top coaches in the league. I think he's because he played at a high level, and you guys now have the people, in my opinion. You mix a Jason Kidd with a Kyrie Irving and a Luka Doncic, arguably three of some like the greatest players to play the game, and then you just y'all have a nice hungry team, man. Y'all have a young team, and they're all willing to listen to Kyrie, willing to listen to Luka, willing to listen to J Kidd. So I think the sky's the limit for y'all guys this year. I really think y'all can go get it, honestly.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that from another fan that's not necessarily a fan of the Mavericks because it gives me like a kind of a different perspective. You know, like when you're a fan of a team, I feel like and there's a little bit of bias there. You're like, oh, my team can win it because you know you're watching them, you think they're maybe better than they are, but in a way, it's like I try to buoy myself on that because it's like I don't know how much of it is real and how much of it is just hype within my own self, but I mean they're in the finals and they're going against the Celtics, so it's like they're obviously they earned it, and unlike the Celtics, we had it didn't have it easy. We went against some really tough teams, and teams that had strong defenses too to get here. And when we going into the playoffs, there were some doubts about how good our defense was. But those trade deadline moves that we made to get Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington completely transformed the way our team operates on the defensive end. And it really took a lot of pressure off Kyrie and Luka, even though I feel like Luka has stepped up on the defensive end in the playoffs. I mean, when you got those bigs out there, athletic bigs that are just constantly blocking shots and diving in the passing lanes to get steals, I mean, it makes your job as a 30 point a night scorer a lot easier. You know, they could just focus on their offense a lot more. I'm
I
definitely
love the
excited about it.
energy. It you can tell like just watching y'all's team from another fan perspective. Just I love the playoffs. Just watching like y'all guys look so excited to play for each other, and like that's exciting. So like right now, in my opinion, the Mavericks are easy to root for, man. Like Kyrie Irving in his interviews has been masterful and very insightful. Like he's been shown a side of humility that I haven't seen from him in a while. I'm a Texas guy, so it's cool. I really feel like he's like Dallas has grown on him, and I like that for him because Kyrie looks in a great space. And I said this on the last podcast. The tandem with him and Luca and how Luca is just like so willing to grow his game, like that's beautiful to watch. Like Luca he seems like putty right now. Like he seems so ready to be a better player in so many different ways. And like that's really cool to see from him. And it's cool to see that Kyrie was the guy out of all people to pull that out of him.
If you would have told me, like, even 18 months, 24 months ago, like, you know, you're going to have Kyrie as the guy that was going to be paired with Luke, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't think that this was
Heck no.
possible. And even after it happened, I didn't know if it was going to be a good fit just because of how rough it was in the beginning. But the Mavericks retooled. And I do, like I said, I want to admit when I'm wrong. I feel like that's a big part of growth. Last year, when we missed the playoffs, we actually had a chance at the last week of the season to make the play-in tournament. And a lot of us Maverick fans wanted to see them push because we believed in Kyrie and Luka's ability to just suddenly, make a tear and go off. So when they decided to tank to keep the top 10 protected pick, the pick that we kept from the Knicks trade, it was the last thing that we needed to pay for the Porzingis deal. It was a little bit like disappointing that they were just going to fold the cards and be like, nope, we're just going to go ahead and tank and we're not going to worry about trying to do the play-in tournament. That was really disappointing. And at that point, I was already done with Jason Kidd. But as a result of that move, they were able to get Derek Lively in the draft, a player that they had graded as a top three player in the whole entire draft. And because of that, Derek Lively, his second team all rookie, his stats don't jump off the page, but I mean, his connection and chemistry with Luca and the rest of the guys, I mean, he's coming off like a veteran player. And there's nights where
Yes.
he started over Gafford, who's Gafford was among the league leaders in blocks per game and rebound or field goal percentage. So it's not like he's a slouch. And so when a rookie's able to start taking minutes away from a really solid veteran, you know that he's coming a long way. One thing I put out on threads earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, the relationships in the NBA are important because what I saw was a clip of Tyson Chandler, a former Maverick player and Defensive Player of the Year himself. He was working with Derek Lively in practice. He was doing drills with him and working on his game with him. And
Oh, that's
that,
dope.
yeah, relationships are important because you got Tyson Chandler in the building, well, a defensive player of the year, a really strong center in his day, and you got him working with the rookie who's preparing for the NBA Finals. So that's one thing I'm also proud of as a Mavericks fan that our front office and coaches, are able to lean on these guys that came through before. And even though Tyson Chandler only played 2 seasons with us, he's willing to come in here and work with our players and get them better.
Yeah, no, I think that's dope. I really do. The Lakers don't really have that pedigree right now. A lot of our players are staying away from everything, and I wish they would help. I wish they would jump in. Recipes to the Mamba. He had just gotten comfortable and started mentoring the players, and it really was helping AD and Braun. So I really do hope we can follow the same model one day and get some of the older players in there and do the same thing and just kind of coach these guys along, like Austin and Rui. I think the Mavericks are doing great things over there, man. I really do.
Moving on to the matchup now, Celtics and Mavericks and how they match up with each other. What do you think of that matchup? The Celtics obviously didn't have the hardest. We've already beat this point in, but they didn't have the hard route to get here. They're getting KP back, who hasn't even been there since the first round of playoffs. So it's like they're going to look different. They're the best team in basketball by record. I would say to me they are the best team in basketball, but they actually have to prove it. How well do you think the Celtics matched up with the Mavericks, and ultimately, who are you predicting to win the series?
I think the Celtics and the Mavericks match up well. I think the difference might be the size because the Celtics are bigger when you look at their players. But I think skill wise, the Mavericks have more skill because you have Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic. Not saying that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown aren't skillful because as well as Derek White because they really are. But I just think when you turn them on in a moment, I think it's going to be the Mavericks. This series could go 6 or 7. I think it'll go 6 or 7. I'll be surprised if it's a gentleman's sweep and for or a regular sweep. I'm gonna say the Mavericks, and I want to say the Mavericks because one, the Celtics have not per se been battle tested to this point. Not to take anything away from them because they did get to the NBA Finals, so they are who they are. They are one of, if not the best team in the league as record wise. So like they're not no slouch. But I just think the Mavericks have that guy on their team. They have a champion, Jason Kidd, who's been there before. You have a champion in Kyrie Irving, who's been there before. And I just think that might be the difference, in my opinion. Because I'm trying to think, but I don't think the Celtics have any former champions on this team right now. Even Joe Mazzulla is not a championship coach per se. But I mean, he's a great coach. He's a great young up and coming
Yeah,
coach.
he is.
I think the experience in this particular situation may matter. I really do.
So I'm gonna say this: if I wasn't a Mavericks fan, I would probably pick the Celtics. To be honest with you, taking the fanboy out of it, I do think that the Celtics are the better team. When you look at top to bottom roster, player for player, I mean, their starting five I think is better than ours, and they have a couple guys coming off the bench that I think are pretty solid too. But as you said, the Mavericks are the battle tested team. They've gone through a pretty decent gauntlet to get here, and they beat the Timberwolves. Who the Timberwolves were hot. They came into that series with a lot of swagger. They just knocked off the champs, and they looked good while doing it. And we came in there and beat them in 5 games. We took 2 games on their home court to start off the series. So it's that's huge, and I think that there's a lot to say to that. Now, as far as experience, I do think the Celtics do. I mean, they haven't won a ring, but I think the experience as far as player for player, they've been in the finals a couple of times as a group already. This is their year. Honestly, there's no excuses. They should absolutely win this series. I'm still gonna go with Mavericks in 7, not only because I am a fan, but also because I believe that their quest to get here is strengthened this squad and made them even more locked in than they otherwise would be. And I think that rest is also going to help them because they've had a couple guys hobbled actually. I mean, Luca himself, and having a week, what I think it was like 9 or 10 days off, is going to do wonders for them. So, and I think Jason Kidd is now that's where the experience to me is helps him out. He's been as a coach for a while. He's been a Hall of Fame player for a while. Missoula recently became the coach, and and I agree with you. He's a great coach, already one of the top tier coaches in my opinion.
For
But
sure.
Jason Kidd has a masterful job of coaching in this postseason. I think masterful job. Hats off to him. I don't think there's pretty much any way he could have coached any better than he has to get us here. So I think Jason Kidd has the edge as far as coaching, and I think that's going to be a boon to the Mavericks winning this series. To be honest with you, so I'm going to go Mavs in 7. You also said Mavericks. How many games would you say you think it's going to be?
It's so hard to say. I really do believe it could go 6 or 7. It's hard for me to say which one, but I do think it's gonna go 6 or 7, 6 or 7 games.
So we're pretty much in solidarity on that front as far as how long the series might go. Do you have any final thoughts on on that series or anything you want to add?
I think it's gonna be a great series. I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are gonna be masterful. I think they're gonna finally be able to show how great they are on a big stage. I do hope Kristaps Porzingis is actually healthy and not like healthy how they do in sports sometimes. I really do think that I think it's going to be a good series. I really do. It's going to be a really good series, in my opinion. But I don't know, man. I just think that Jason Kidd, I really just think his experience with being there before, like, okay, so I think that might be the ultimate chess match in this series is the adjustments that Joe Mazzulla makes and the adjustments that Jason Kidd makes. I know the players got to play, but I do think that that may be like the defining factor.
I agree with you there, and I think it's because there's going to be a point where the starters are tuckered out and the bench players need to come in.
Exactly.
There's no way, as good as both the starting five on both of these teams are, they're not playing 40 minutes a game. So the bench players are going to come in. That's where the adjustments are going to have to be made. And we're going to see who makes the better adjustments. I think the Celtics have the edge as far as their starting five, but I believe the Mavericks have the edge on their bench. I think we have the better bench than the Celtics do. I think they're a bit top heavy for them for as a team. So I'm really excited to see where it goes. I mean, I've every day I've waked up counting the days for the calendar. You know, Thursday it seems so far away, man. But it's only 2 days away as we're recording. So by the time that the people see this pod, it'll have already been game one. So um, it's what a series. I don't think anyone expected the Mavericks to be in there with the Celtics, but this is the series we got, and this is why we love the NBA, the unpredictable nature of it. You know.
Yep, this is the time of the year that we love the most.
Did you have any final thoughts on the NBA or any comments you want to make before we move on?
No, I just think the NBA is in a good place. I think the young stars are. I think there is a passing of the torch. You know, it is Anthony Edwards, John Morant, Jason Tatum, Jamal Murray, even Paolo Banchero, Wembanyama. It's their league now. So shout out to them, and the league's in good hands. Like basketball's in a great space. I love all the young stars, and it's going to be awesome to see who makes their mark first. Jamal Murray has already done it for his generation. Let's see if Jason Tatum or maybe even Luca gets their first ring.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. What a time to be a basketball fan. I urge people who maybe haven't watched the NBA in a while. I know there's a lot of people that after Jordan retired kind of fell off and didn't come back, but check it out. Victor Wembanyama is the first guy in history to be a first team all NBA all defense as a rookie. He almost won Defensive Player of the Year. And that's just him. And as you mentioned, Anthony Edwards really came up out of nowhere. You know, John Morant's still a really strong player who's going to come back with a vengeance next year. Absolutely. Jamal Murray. So this is a young man's league. It always has been. But guys like LeBron and Kobe, you know, were able to turn the clock backwards and stay on top longer. But no, now it's the young generation. We're starting to see it now. All
And
these 21 all
don't
these
forget
21 year
Dirk.
olds.
20 years.
Yes,
Dirk
and
gave him 20 as well.
it might be what if we see these guys playing for 20 years, you know, and we probably will as with the way medicine's going.
Oh,
So
for sure. Somebody's gonna do it. I'm not sure which one of this generational talents is gonna do it, but I
maybe
think
even
someone's gonna do
25
it.
years with the advancements we're making. You never know.
I can see Jason Tatum playing for a long time. I really could.
Yeah, I think his style lends him playing for a while. He doesn't necessarily. I don't see John Morant playing for 25 years, but I could see
No,
Jason Tatum.
sir.
He's way too
Cue the
explosive for that.
meme.
Yeah. All right. So we have some unfortunate news. I don't want to go into that just because, you know, I feel like we're in a good mood, but we will get right around to that. But so on good positive news, the Negro stats officially became official. And this made a player like Josh Gibson, who was considered one of the best batters in history, not only for power, but also just to get on base. He was an excellent base runner, someone who died while he was still playing, actually, from a heart condition. He is now the career leader in batting average over Ty Cobb, who was not a very nice person. So it's actually kind of ironic to see that happen. So it's
That
huge.
divine intervention,
Yes, we're talking over what 80 years of them being kept separate. The big thing for me though, I think this is a huge, obviously huge W. But what I'm also thinking now, and what I'm hoping for, is if the ABA can finally get their stats to be official, because that would make a huge difference for a guy like Dr. J and Essel, who would be quite a bit higher on the all-time scoring list if their stuff counted.
which I'm so rooting for. Like that would be dope. The Negro League having their integration as an African American, I'm just proud, just happy, just to see those guys get their shine, man. Because baseball is a beautiful sport for all creeds, all colors, and I'm just glad that we have some guys in there now that can be honored, be recognized. Because we also got to remember this was a time where you weren't getting paid the millions you get paid now. They obviously were not revered and supported as much as we are now. So it's just cool to see the descendants and the families, Josh Gibson and other players who can say, hey, like, you know, my family member was one of the best and they're finally getting recognized. So I'm just really happy and really proud for the MLB for them doing this. And I also hope the NBA follows suit and lets the ABA integrate their statistics as well, because I think it all matters. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, historically, a lot of historians and even former players said that the Negro leagues were the better league as far as the talent and the skill. I mean, obviously, we there's not any footage that can back this up, but the players who got to play against him, they had exhibition games. Maybe it wasn't on the schedule, but a lot of the top MLB players did play against some of the top guys like Satchel Paige, who, by the way, was in his 50s when he was playing in the MLB. He was still that good that they were willing to use him for that long. So
In his
when
50s. That's
yeah,
insane, man.
yes, when they finally integrated, they were still wanting him to play. So I mean, to me, that's evidence in itself that a guy, their leagues had to have been that good if they're still using him at that age. So.
That's amazing. And that story needs to be told, man. And I hope more stories, especially that story gets told. I hope it gets told, but I also hope more stories like that get told. Like it's history. And I just hope people who love baseball want to hear it and let it be heard because it's beautiful stories, man.
So I want to take this time now to basically make mention of it. It's unfortunate news, but also I don't want it to necessarily just be unfortunate news. It's something that we can take a moment to celebrate their life and careers. Not only was the great Trailblazer and Celtic player Bill Walton passed away, and it happened shortly after our last episode, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. But also, Cowboys legend Larry Allen, which being a fan of Larry Allen, what did you think of that, and what do you think of him as a player and a man?
It's really unfortunate. And he really is, from what I can tell, revered by the Cowboys nation. He is 10-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All Pro, played 12 seasons with the Cowboys. He was considered one of the greatest pulling guards ever, if not one of. It's up for debate, but he's one of the greatest guards ever. I believe he's a member of the All Decade team for the 2000s and the 1990s. So he was just generational, and his is actually. Oh yeah, his numbers right behind me. Like he was a great player, and he actually did a lot for the community as well. He was really good. If the great John Randall, one of the greatest defensive tackles who talked the most trash ever, was like that's one of the guys I did not talk trash to, then like Larry Allen was like one of those dudes. He also bench pressed upwards of 700. Like that's crazy. Like he was a physical specimen. The guy was like a human bear. Like he was an amazing athlete, amazing football player. And rest in peace to him and condolences to his family.
He's one of the first lineman players that I got to see highlights for, like because they don't usually give them highlights or they show their highlights. But one of the first highlights I saw was him running down one of the fastest players in the NFL and tackling him from behind after a turnover. And then the other one I saw was when he was actually made the Pro Bowl with the 49ers towards the end of his career. He did the bench press competition and was, winning despite being an older player. So he was pumping iron and he was fast. And as you said, what a great person. And it's unfortunate, he went way too early, but he left a huge mark on a lot of people, a lot of positive impact. He's definitely never going to be forgotten. So Larry Allen and also Bill Walton, another man who's done a lot for the sport of basketball. Another guy who gone too soon, and both
Both
incredible
legends and Hall
people.
of Famers.
Yes, both incredible people who gave a lot to the game. So I mean, unfortunate these things happen, but again, I wanted to take the time to celebrate their life and their achievements for the sports they played.
Yeah, we recognize them, and we thank them for their contributions to the game of football and the game of basketball. Really, we do.
Yep. So I wanted to go over just a little bit of some NFL offseason. I know there's not a lot going on. People are in training camp right now. So, what's it? The OTAs, where there's mini camp and there's training camp. It's confusing which ones, but this is the mandatory mini camp, is what they're calling it, I believe. So, we got some good big contracts out, and it's something that I mentioned to you in Q and a couple of podcast episodes ago is Cowboys need to make some moves on getting CD Lamb and Dak some new deals because the clock's ticking. We've got Justin Jefferson reset the market, biggest deal ever for a non-quarterback in NFL history. And then just a few hours later, Christian McCaffrey reset the running back market again. Now he's making $19 million a year as a running back, which I'm happy for him. I thought I've been thinking and saying this for a while that I think running backs are incredibly undervalued. And then also Waddle from the Dolphins got himself a deal. So Cowboys, your team, they have to make something shake here. I know that money's supposedly tied up, but for guys that said they were all in, they're waiting too long for these deals. What do you think of these players and how your Cowboys being a bit idle here on this?
I'm not sure what they're doing. I understand that Justin Jefferson's deal just got done, so I believe CD Lamb's deal should be coming soon. CeeDee Lamb deal should be done by the end of the week. Today's Tuesday. Yeah, the CeeDee Lamb deal should be done by the end of the week. If it's not done, I don't know what they're doing because I understand them waiting on that specifically because we all knew that Justin Jefferson was going to reset the market. Dak, I feel like they should be able to get that done as well. If you do that, you tie up more money to help this team. And let's be honest, whether you love Dak or not, whether you think he's a top 10, top 16 quarterback, it's all up for debate. But if you get rid of Dak Prescott, what else do you have? I don't know if we can just lean in and give the keys to Trey Lance. I don't. I don't. We haven't even seen him play really, so we don't really know what he is. Now, if he goes out in preseason and plays really well, then all right, maybe you make that decision. But I think the Dak deal and the CeeDee Lamb deal both have to get done. But CD for sure the priority and should get done ASAP, and then Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, they're kind of backed themselves into a corner though. It's like, with CeeDee Lamb, that deal should have already been done. I mean, you don't have a better receiver. There's not going to be a better receiver come by. And then as far as Dak, they kind of bought themselves a little time. That's why I think they may actually let him play this whole year without doing a deal, unless he just comes out on fire, throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns every night. I want to see Cooper Rush. I know. As an Eagles fan, I'm like, put the guy who's not very good in there. But no, hear me out here. I think he's actually a pretty good quarterback, and I think they've done a good job developing him. I'm not saying he's a franchise quarterback, but if you're the Cowboys and you're like, let's enough with Dak, he's getting too expensive. We know what he is. You could throw Cooper Rush in there and be passable. I don't think they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but you can hand him the keys to the offense and go 9-8 with Cooper Rush as your quarterback, I think, and still look passable enough that the fans get off your back because they're gonna. I think at this point, a lot of fans probably are a little bit sick of Dak anyway. And as you mentioned, with the preseason, we could finally see what Trey Lance is about and Cooper Rush, both of them. But I don't know if I'm the Cowboys, I probably want to not pay Dak yet, but the CD Lamb deal needs to happen already.
I agree. I don't know. I love Coop. I really do. I don't know if he's good enough to like be our quarterback for a whole season. I really wanted him to get that chance with another team just so I can see that, but I don't know. Coop is really vanilla. He's really by the book. I don't know if he'll ever be able to go outside and really start throwing outside the numbers. And when teams really start game planning for him, how he's going to be, because if people do remember his very last game before Dak came back from injury, he threw 3 interceptions. And that was him 4 games, I think, into that season, like 4 straight games. So people had finally seen some tape on him, started preparing for him. So I'm not sure, but I would love to see it. I'm not opposed to it. I just think like Dak has to get done because who's a better quarterback? He's not top 5, but he's a serviceable quarterback, runner up MVP last year. What are you gonna do? You gonna move on from that?
I mean, you're right about the runner-up MVP thing. It is something you have to consider, but I mean, we've seen what his ceiling is. I don't think Dak's ever going to get any better than this, and to me, his ceiling is not good enough for what this team
I
needs. I
agree.
mean, their defense has time, like they're elite at times, for most of the season. But in the Packers game, I know me and you talked about this off camera that you believe that the defense let the team down a lot more than the offense, and I basically had told you that I disagree. I think that yes, the defense, they give up a couple of touchdowns, and it's obviously at that point on them, but when the offense can't respond, and it took them late in the second half to start putting points on the board, the defense is gassed. They're not confident anymore, and they're not getting any help. I mean, that's when you're going to start seeing teams put up 40 plus on them. To me, Dak has had this consistent history in the playoffs of falling short, of disappearing. When in the regular season, this guy is an elite quarterback against bad teams and a subpar quarterback against good teams.
Some would
And
call that a front runner.
I'm sick of seeing Dak. And even though I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, I think the Eagles are it's like the iron sharpens iron kind of thing. Like you want to see your rivals do well because they make you a better team too. And Cowboys have just been kind of a disappointing team for me as a non-fan, just because I believe that rivalry would take another huge step. And even though both teams made the playoffs and technically the Cowboys had a better year, it kind of felt like they were both letdowns at the end of the season. I don't really see the Cowboys going anywhere with Dak, but they're not my team, so it doesn't really matter to me what they do.
To me, Dak reminds me a lot of Matty Ice, honestly. I feel like he has one in him, but I don't know if that year already passed. We had a year where we had Coop. We had MG before the injury. We had CD Lamb. I just feel like another in the last 3 years might have been the year that was supposed to be his Matty Ice. I'll take y'all to the Super Bowl. Let's see what happens here. But I don't know. This upcoming season, the cupboard is bare. There's a lot of rookies they're trying to develop and lean on this year. I don't know if this is gonna. I definitely don't think this is the year where we have a better team or a better shot than last year or maybe the past previous 2 years before that. I think this year is going to be show improve, honestly.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are. Last year was their best year to me, as with Dak, as far as their best chance. Yeah,
Yes.
they had a really good team. Defense was right there. I know they lost Diggs early in the season, but they had the other corner step up and do what he was doing. So it's like okay, but now this year they get them both back. Tyron Smith is gone, but you got some exciting rookies and you got some exciting young guys that are still on cheap contracts. So we'll see what happens with the Cowboys. Now, as far as my team, the Eagles, they're doing really well in minicamp. I'm trying not to rub it in, but all the rookies are doing really well. Everyone's praising them. They might even win some starting jobs as rookies. It's been really exciting as an Eagles fan to see, how that's panned out post draft, as well as Justin Simmons is still on the market. So I'm really hoping that they go after him. He's the best available free agent at a position that we could still use some upgrading on. So and the last thing I need is for the Cowboys to scoop him up, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. I mean, the Eagles have a great front office. They're really good at picking up pieces. So if I was a betting man, I would bet the Eagles probably get that nod.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. We got Vic Fangio, who was Justin Simmons' coach for a while, and from what I understand, they had still when they got rid of Vic Fangio, apparently Justin Simmons still had a lot of good things to say about him. So I'm hoping that he still wants to play for him and he comes because Vic Fangio's defense, we had a defense that was structured around him with the rookie defense coordinator last season, but now we have the real deal. We have the actual guy who orchestrated this defense. And Justin Simmons was his best performing player in the defense in Denver. So I'm really hoping that marriage comes soon because that would be amazing. We would have an all star team. Hopefully, we're not going to call it the all star team like 2011 when we brought all those guys in and then it all faltered. But right now, it's looking good. We got a bunch of good players on every position. We got good rookies and good backup players. I'm smelling something in the air, but I don't want to get too hype on it. But I'm really feeling like this could be our year. I don't want to be
Hey,
like Cowboys fans where we're, weeding boys every year, but it's feeling good. I'm not gonna lie to
hey, I'm not mad at you, man. Y'all made some great moves. Y'all drafted really well, so I'm not mad at that. I mean, there's a lot of offseason left too, so still make some off-season free agency pickup. So we'll see what happens. But I would say I'll make a move or two. And I do think that that would be a good move for the defense because Justin can come in and really marry what y'all are already doing with any players that don't understand. Like I think he'd be a great veteran for like player. So that's a good pickup for y'all if y'all can bring him in and get him in there.
Who would you like to see the Cowboys pick up out of guys that are still out there? Is there any name that you had on your list that you were like, man, I wish the Cowboys would call this guy up and bring him on in?
Yes, sir. The Gil Lock, Stephon Gilmore, man. Bring him back in. Put him next to Deron Bland. I will say I think it was only maybe 1.5 games. But that one game where Trayvon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore played together was masterful. They both looked on par, just amazing together. So I wish we could have got more of that duo. So I would love for him to bring Stephon Gilmore back and pair him with Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland.
Man, that would be pretty damn scary. I'm not gonna lie. That y'all would probably have the best corner group in the entire NFL if y'all brought Stephon Gilmore back and both other guys are healthy. Because Gilmore can still play.
He can.
And those young corners you guys had are already elite players, assuming that Diggs's knee feels fine after that.
He should be good to go. All indications or all reports are saying. So I'm happy for that because he's my favorite player. I actually just got his jersey last year for Christmas, so I'm pretty excited to wear it. Not gonna lie. So I'm pretty excited. Trayvon's my favorite player.
A hell of a player to have your favorite player. He's really good, man. He was a player that I was pretty jealous of when you guys picked him up. Cowboys have that effect of drafting players I wanted. Like I really wanted CD Lamb that year.
Yeah,
We
I was
got the guys we
so
got.
I was so happy, bro, to see CD Lamb fall. And I wish there was some type of footage, but my brother, well, Q, he can tell you on the next pod. We were watching the draft. I'm like, bro, we need to draft Trayvon Diggs. And I was so happy when we did. He ended up being a dog like I thought he would be. Like I said, high school, we went to high school together. Receiver, I was always kind of made to be a receiver. When I played cornerback, that was like my favorite position. That was, I got my one career interception. That's my favorite play. Yeah, cornerback's my favorite position. So I love watching Trayvon do his thing. And the Cowboys have not had a star cornerback in years. So it's just bro, I can't wait for my dog to come back.
Yeah, I think it's Terrence Newman, I guess, would probably be the last qualified star for you guys to have. And he was a dog too. He played late in
Yo,
his
heck yeah.
career and he was a really good cover corner. So yeah, it is nice to see that you guys have some good cover corners. It'll be all the more sweet when our receivers burn them for touchdowns. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, you know?
Nah, unless it's a double move, I think we're all right. My guys is a little susceptible to the double move, but if it's not a double move, I like what we doing.
Yeah, Diggs jumps everything. He doesn't care.
I'm
Double
telling
moves or
you,
not.
yeah, yeah, he be tripping. He be tripping. I love bro, but you got to chill on a double
The
move.
year he, the year he led the league in interceptions, I think he gave up over 1,000 yards of receiving yards
Yeah,
too.
he
So it's
did.
just like whoa. But I mean, I think they're still going to take the what he's taken back too, though. I mean, it's a gamble. You
Oh heck
you lose a
yeah,
lot, gain a lot. You know.
he led the league in defensive touchdowns, and set the record or tied the record.
Yeah, he's a great player. So I mean, I don't think y'all have too much to worry about, and he's only going to get better too. Probably not going to
Yeah,
ever repeat that performance, but he'll at least
nah,
get better. I think people are going to learn to stop. Well, if you keep Bland and Diggs, you can't just say, "Well, they're not going to throw to him," because the other guy they have to throw to one of them, right?
yep. And as you saw, Deron Bland led the league in interceptions and he broke an interception record as well. Like we got two great ball hawks. So like, man, bro, this is why I want them to bring in Gilly because you gotta throw to one of them, bro.
Yeah, you do. And I mean, the linebackers, I think they got rid of Leighton Vander Esch, didn't they? Finally.
He medically retired, yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So they don't have him anymore. He was a good linebacker in his day. It's
Yeah,
unfortunate
so
what
they have
happened to him.
Eric Kendricks, who came from the Chargers, um, Zavarion Overshown, who was a draft pick from Texas 2 years ago. His rookie year he tore his ACL. So, and then they have Demo, who he was playing out of position. I think he was playing like Sam, but he's gonna play Will this year. So it's gonna be interesting. They have a Eric Kendricks is the veteran, which makes sense because he's always played in Mike Zimmer's defense when they were with the Vikings. The linebacker group for the Cowboys is really interesting this year. They have a lot
Unproven
of
guys,
unproven.
except for Kendricks.
Exactly. You have I don't know how to say his name. He's Hawaiian. Luau Mark. I don't know how to say his name, but he's also
Yeah,
a
I don't
rookie
know
too.
who's y'all's defensive coordinator, anyways.
Mike Zimmer.
Oh, it's Zim, huh? Good old Zim Zam.
Yeah,
He's a hell of a defensive coach. He didn't work out as a head coach, but y'all didn't pick him up for that, so that might work out. You never know.
I like him. I really do. I like his scheme. I like what I've heard about him. I think he's going to be a good transition from Dan Quinn because Dan Quinn was a player's coach, and I think that was great for this team and has really gotten everyone where they need to be. But now they need like that next step above that's going to hold them accountable. And I believe that Mike Zimmer is going to do that, and I think it's going to be good for it.
Yeah, he
It's
has
going
a
to be plain to be
reputation for
seen.
being kind of an ass, so it's
And that's
definitely a
that's what we
bit
need,
different
man.
than Dan Quinn.
We got too many Hollywood. Like we need that. We need accountability, and we need like, hey, stay in your assignment, stay in your gap. No more hero ball. Let's play good, sound technical defense. Except for
Fair enough.
Trayvon Diggs, keep getting them interceptions.
Yeah, you could give up as many yards as you want as long as you keep picking them up. So another player was banned for gambling for life. This time as an MLB player. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about that. As more and more states are allowing sports betting, I think we're going to start to see this more. Unfortunately, what is your thoughts on this sudden rash of players getting caught? I mean, I know there's some minor league players that also got in trouble, but they only got year-long bans since they were betting on teams that weren't their teams. What do you think of this? What do you think that should be done about this? What advice would you give to a young player that might think about betting on games?
Well, for starters, I think this is inevitable because where the game has gone with betting, it's really unfortunate because it taints the game in a way. No bones about it. I do think what they're doing, giving these players life bans, is exactly what needs to happen. This is the only way it's going to deter people. If you go any lesser with the punishment, then it's all worth it for them. If they're not losing their privilege to play this game to support and be a part of it, then they're making their monetary value, so they're not going to care. So I fully support the bans. And to any younger players, is it really going to be worth it when you can't play or make money off of the sport that you've been God given, or just given the opportunity to play? It'll never be worth it not to go out there and just play rather than try to taint the game and make some extra money on the side. I promise you'll probably make way more money putting your head in the sand and just trying to be a better player at your respective sport rather than tainting the game and trying to get a little money on the side.
This guy that got banned for life in MLB apparently lost most of his bets. He lost every single parlay and only won about 10-15% of his bets. So it certainly wasn't worth it for him. I don't know why he kept doing it. I don't know if it was an addiction. It most likely was an addiction. I hope he gets the help he needs. I don't know what the setup is, to be honest with you, but I do believe that if you're going to be advertising it, and they clearly are making money from it, the MLB, NBA, and NFL, so it's like hopefully the players are getting a cut of that revenue at the very least. And obviously we don't want them betting on the games, but at the end of the day, people are betting on their performance. They're betting on how well these players are going to do. It's only right for them to get a cut of all this money going around. You know what I mean? It's something that I mentioned in the CCNY point shaving scandal video I did a few years back. Everyone was making money from sports betting except for the players themselves, and that's why the cheating got so bad with the point shaving and the scandals and stuff. Because the players in college weren't making any money from this stuff, and there was so many people in the mob that were making a lot of money and able to do things with that money, and the players themselves who were putting in the work and the time weren't making any of it. So it's like something should be done in that end. Hopefully there is. The DraftKings money and all that stuff is going back to the players somehow. Because I think you're going to see more of this. Honestly, you're going to see more players trying to circumvent the rules. Maybe using that's how one of the guys got caught. He was using a family member and placing bets under a family member's name. It's not good. Look up the Chicago Black Sox people. I mean, those guys, some Hall of Fame players, are forever tainted and never will be allowed because of what their potential involvement wasn't even proven involvement, just potential involvement with sports betting.
Yeah, I concur and I agree with what you said. Like, people are placing their hard-earned money on this, and there's no room for you to taint the integrity of the game at your own profit. So I think they should continue to do what they're doing and continue to live bans, continue to stay cracking down. If you want to gamble your future, gamble your career, I hope you win all those bets.
Right. Hope there's some big bets you're winning and make that worth it. I mean, you spent your entire life preparing to be a professional, and then just as my mom would say, piss it all away so quickly on something just to make a quick buck, and you're not even most of the time ever gonna win. So it's just you're really just throwing your money away, and on top of gambling your future. It's wild, but it's most likely an addiction, and if you have an addiction, please get help. I mean, gambling, and just like anything else, can be very destructive if you let it get to that point.
Very much so. That's why it has to be regulated, and that's why there's rules to this thing.
So I wanted to take a moment to talk about the Dallas Stars and the NHL. I know we don't follow it very closely, but the Stars, Dallas area team, as you know, people that follow us on the podcast know, we are in Texas, so that we do follow the DFW. You guys are technically not in DFW, but we follow DFW sports around here. So Dallas Stars, unfortunately, they made it all the way to the conference finals, but they did lose. They lost to the Edmonton Oilers, and in what was a pretty good series. I saw some highlights. I didn't catch any of the games like in full, but I wanted to take the moment to kind of just mess with the Cowboys a little bit because you got the Rangers who just won the championship. You got the Mavericks in the finals. You got the Stars made it to the NHL conference finals, and then you got the Cowboys. You know what I mean? So I think this, to me, puts even more pressure on the Cowboys to do well because I feel like they've been the team that's been on the fringe of being really good for so long. And now all these other sports in the area are kind of putting the pressure on them. What do you think of Dallas sports and how well they've been doing lately?
Hey, I'm proud Stars. Great season. Sky's the limit. Keep building on that next year, man. Rangers, that was one of the dopest things because I've always been a Rangers fan, not like on some huge, just I go to every game, I watch every game, but just I've been to a Rangers game. Being in Texas, that was one of the first baseball games I've ever been to in my life. So I have just an affinity and appreciation for that team. So watching them win it was super cool. Dak Prescott just did an interview with the DallasCowboys.com earlier in the week, and he addressed this. And like he said, go win it. go put more pressure on the Cowboys to go do better. That's all we can do. And I agree with it. Mavs, go win that thing so the Cowboys can see that. And shout out to the city of Dallas. It's a great city. I'm biased because, I used to live there. I'm a fan. So I don't know. I just think it's a beautiful city and the amount of attention, the amount of revenue, it's deserved and it's going to help the economy there. And I'm just super proud for Dallas to be every so often finding a way to put their straw hat in. They represent Texas very well. Them for a long time it was San Antonio holding us down, Houston back in the 90s. But I gotta say, man, the Dallas Mavericks, the Rangers, really holding Texas down right now when it comes to sports and winning. So go win that, put more pressure on the Cowboys, and yeah, they need that because I don't know how else they're going to win it unless maybe just seeing their peers and all their, counterparts winning. Maybe that'll be motivation.
Yeah, something has to give, right? I mean, it's been a
I'm
fair few
saying,
years here. They've been so good and they haven't been able to get over that hump. So hopefully watching all the other athletes in the area, because they are the most famous sports team in the world. I mean, I know some of our European fans for other sports might disagree, but the Cowboys are one of the most recognizable brands there is. So for them to be getting
like the
outdone by
Lakers and the Yankees.
exactly. So it's their time to step up a bit here. I know they lost some of their talent, but hey, no excuses. You gotta get it done.
Yeah,
Do you have any closing thoughts on the world of sports or any other comments you'd like to state here or bring up?
I think it's an exciting time to watch all sports. Again, continue to watch the WNBA. There's been some great games going on. Baseball's in a great space, it seems like. Basketball and the NBA is in a great space. I just think it's a great time to be a sports fan. If you can't lock down on a team, lock down on a player, just find whatever you like and go do that. It doesn't matter what sports you're watching right now, but it seems like just sports in general, they're all the all-time high. We're looking at the Olympics coming up, so I'm pretty geeked for that and it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of European players in this Olympics putting pressure on the USA team. I'm excited, man.
I'm really hype about the Olympics. I'm happy that a lot of USA basketball stars are coming back to try to lift the gold up for us again. So,
LeBron and AD going to be representing for us.
yes, and a lot of these young players that are coming up are going to be on our side this time. So it's not going to be a bunch of random guys. I know there was some talent last time, but then we didn't send our best. So it's
Us in your
this
hand.
we're gonna do it this time. We're gonna take gold, and I know that there's gonna be other superstar players out there. I mean, Europe has really stepped up their stuff over the last 20 some years. It all started with the Spurs, as you mentioned. I mean, they brought all these European guys in, became Hall of Famers, and now other guys started really sniffing around trying to scout. I know people were giving the next draft class a lot of crap, saying that it wasn't very good, but there's projected to be the top 5 picks are going to be European players or players from around the world. So
Yep.
you never know what they're going to be picking up. I know they're not heralded or getting a lot of press for being great players, but for them to be going that high, someone has to believe in them, and you never know. This draft class could completely surprise people just because of the unknown.
I think it will. I know a lot of people aren't high on this year's draft class, but there's going to be, at the very least, one or two players who become, the next stars for their respective teams. And I'm excited to see who proves this year's media and the naysayers for this NBA draft class wrong. I don't know who it's going to be. I really don't, but I'm excited to see which guy comes out this year of this year's draft and says, "No, man, I'm that dude."
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be an interesting and unpredictable draft, but I'm here for it, and I'm going to see what it's going to be about. But anyways, I can't think of anything else I want to say for comments or anything. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I know that the last couple of podcasts have been shorter, but that's because the matchups have been shorter. And of course, if anyone in the comments you want to say, "Hey, why aren't you covering this sport?" As I put the pressure on you and Q before, I put out a poll, and people want to see us cover college sports. They're not in season yet, but that is something that they want to see happen. So, besides that, is there anything else? I know I already asked you that, but anything else you want to add that you can think of?
Hey, we're here for it. Whenever pops up, we're gonna be here to cover all the sports. Continue to put pressure on us. Continue to ask us, "Hey, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that?" I don't care if you're a Nuggets fan or Wizards fan. Get in the comments. Let us know, and we'll cover your team. We'll bring up a topic that you want us to bring up, and we'll talk about that. As always, thank you for supporting us. And as we grow, you guys are gonna grow with us, and we're gonna keep covering this thing of sports.
Yes, and please subscribe to our channel if you like the pod or if you like any of the videos we put out. More videos are going to be coming soon. I have one called "NFL's Unlikeliest Stars" are going to drop. It's going to cover some of the players in the NFL that became stars, and it was pretty much not expected for it to happen. Hence the title, Unlikely Stars. We got videos coming out covering the history of sports. We got the pod for current events, more current events focus on sports. Key will be here next time. We didn't kidnap him and drop him off a bridge or anything. He'll be here.
Yeah,
But
we'll see
as
him on
far,
the next pod.
yes, give us any feedback. If there's anything that you want to see improved or anything that you like, let us know in the comments. And nothing's gonna hurt our feelings. It'll be there for you to write anything you want, as long as it's not too hurtful. And it will delete it if it is. No, I'm kidding. But anyways, I'm HookShot Drew. Where can they find you, T? I know we ask this every time, but I want you to remind them, where can they find you and your music?
Yeah, so musically, I go by the name of Quite Trill. I'm on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, wherever you get your music. My latest project, Peaks and Valleys, is out now, so go cop that. Let me know, and yeah, I'm out everywhere.
Our intro and outro song is T's and his brother Q's music. So that if you're wondering where that song is from, that's where you can find it. It's Not Nice is the name of the song, right?
Yeah, Not Nice is on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and yeah, go check it out. If you love it, let us know.
Exactly. So you can find Superb Sports Media on Instagram on Threads. If you want to follow me, I'm HookShot Drew on just Threads. But anyways, thank you for supporting us. As we've already said, I am HookShot Drew.
And it's your boy T.
Be kind and have a good night.